Why go back to a selfish woman who doesn't respect or love me? Likewise, after hanging up, Travis turned to the woman next to him, ready for round 2. He asked Sonia, who eventually found her soulmate and married, but Connie and Mara continued their relationship with Travis. He cared for them both in his own way, but never remarried. They returned his feelings in their own unique way and accepted the arrangement together. Years later, they were invited to Travis' second daughter Michelle's wedding, which upset Lauren because she hadn't invited her boyfriend. She complained, but Michelle didn't take her side. After Jackie and her family, Connie and Mara are the closest people to Dad. Michelle explained that they love him for who he is and put him ahead of their own needs. You had him, but you left for something more fleeting. Why? Because you were afraid of aging and assumed he'd never leave, but he did for himself. Travis found satisfaction in his life, even though it was not his original preference. He walked away from what he found unacceptable. Lauren's life wasn't one of loneliness and regret either. As a beautiful woman, she often attracted the attention of men, leading to several short-term relationships that never developed into anything lasting. Reflecting on the past, Lauren acknowledged her remorse for informing her husband of her intention to leave, especially as she struggled to accept Travis' swift acceptance of her decision. She questioned her judgment, wondering how she could have so badly miscalculated the situation. In her eyes, she was a perfect 12, while he was only a 6. She felt it shouldn't have ended this way. I gave him a good beating and then threw him out on the street, naked. I didn't give him back his clothes, but I did throw his wallet and car keys on the grass. He left, and I never heard from him again until fate intervened. When I returned to the bedroom, my wife was hastily dressing and crying, trying to explain herself, but I wouldn't listen. I gave her an ultimatum to leave within the hour or face my wrath. I kept my word and waited 2 hours before returning home, hoping she'd be gone. She left a note, which I almost ignored, but decided to read anyway. Message from Rachel. Dear Kevin, I have a confession to make. I have made a terrible mistake, a huge mistake. Jim doesn't mean anything to me. He's just an old school friend I ran into. We had a romantic history in school, but that's all. You knew I wasn't inexperienced. When we got married, Jim was my first love. Memories from the past resurfaced when I saw him at the mall. At first, it was just a reunion of old friends, but then he started flirting, and I found myself remembering the past. He asked where I lived, and we ended up at our house. I should have known better, but I let my guard down once inside. I showed him around, and when we reached the bedroom, he hugged me and kissed me. It felt like déjà vu, like we were back in our teens. Then things escalated, and we ended up physically engaged. I deeply regret this, and I'm truly sorry for hurting you. Please give me another chance. I promise to be a faithful and devoted wife from now on. I love you more than anything, Kevin, with all my love, Rachel. The note cut deep, especially now that I knew who was behind it. I used to love my wife, but I'm one of those people who believe that love can fade. In my case, it was gone, replaced by a need for revenge. Revenge isn't something you want. It's something you feel compelled to seek, and I was determined to get mine. I called in sick the next day to sort out our finances, changed our checking and savings accounts, and canceled most of our credit cards, keeping only 2 in my name for personal expenses. I'm tough, and I'm not afraid to admit it. When Rachel's father called and asked about our problems, I exploded and told him exactly what was happening. 2 days later, Karen, Rachel's younger sister, called, but I stopped her when she started apologizing for Rachel. She asked for Rachel's things, and I gave her an hour to get them. When Karen mentioned a few more items, I became irritated and responded bluntly. Then Karen asked if there were any personal items left, and I told her that Rachel had an hour to get what she wanted. Karen mentioned a few more items, and I got angry again and responded sharply. I could hear Rachel on the phone in the background, so I hung up. I contacted my lawyer and had him draw up the divorce papers, leaving Rachel with nothing. We rented the house and each had our own car. Other than that, I just kept the savings accounts. Rachel didn't fight the divorce. I made it clear. I would only talk to Karen on my terms. Damn, I was tough. Karen was attractive, even more so than Rachel, and probably less experienced because of her weak husband. I was getting ready to move out of the house, and the divorce was final. I called Karen and offered to pick up some of her sister's things, explaining that I was moving into an apartment and didn't want to bother with moving her things. I made it clear that if she didn't pick them up, I would dispose of them. She immediately agreed to come that evening. I specified that she could come alone or with her husband, but Rachel was not welcome. When Karen arrived later, she was alone and claimed her husband was busy. I knew he was probably afraid, knowing what to expect. As Karen anticipated our meeting, we went into the bedroom where her sister's belongings were being packed. As she reached for a box, I jokingly interrupted and said she hadn't paid yet. She looked at me incredulously and said she wasn't there for the intimacy. I laughed and clarified that it was only a flirtation, not love, and hinted that she had been wanting it for a long time. After helping her load some boxes into her car, I returned to find her upset. She accused me of using her for pleasure and expressed disbelief at my coldness. I responded bluntly, attributing my change in behavior to her sister's actions and comparing her fate to that of her husband. I urged her to leave and reminded her to reveal her infidelity to her husband. I expressed my disdain for unfaithful wives. She left angrily, taking the last box, although she was satisfactory in bed. I knew my motives were driven by revenge against her sister. Mating could never replace love, but my desire for vengeance consumed me. I was fixated on revenge, even though I knew it wouldn't solve my problems. It was simply something I felt compelled to do, regardless of its morality. Her name was Carly, a charming woman I met on a regular basis. Sometimes you're inexplicably drawn to someone. I often saw her at the restaurant with her friends, including Marka, an acquaintance who knew of my divorce. One day, when Marka was eating alone, I invited her to join me for lunch in search of conversation. We discussed family matters and general topics, maintaining a casual friendship. She inquired about my life after the divorce. Everyone knew Rachel had cheated, but the identity of her partner remained a secret. When someone dared to ask, I simply shrugged and claimed ignorance. Marka mentioned the new girl at work, Carly, who had moved in with her husband, Jim, about a year ago. The mention of Jim hit a nerve. Marcia eyed me wearily, wondering if I intended to pursue Carly. Aware of my reputation since the divorce, I assured Marcia. I merely found Carrie attractive and was curious about her. I gathered more information about Jim to confirm my suspicions. Once convinced, I was determined to seduce Carly, even though I hated myself for it. During lunch with a friend, Carly and her husband walked in unexpectedly, the same man I had caught with my wife. Despite my anger, I remained calm and resisted the urge to confront him again. He didn't recognize me, but I recognized him, which only strengthened my resolve to one day hunt down his wife. When I found Carly alone, I struck up a conversation and introduced myself as Marcia's friend. To ease any tensions, she responded warmly and I suggested we share a table, joking that she'd have to pay her own way. She laughed, and we enjoyed lunch together, during which she opened up about her husband's rough start in the city. Afterwards, I expressed my pleasure in meeting her and extended an open invitation for future lunches. I was faced with a dilemma. Drawn to Carrie, yet driven by the need for revenge against her husband, I struggled with conflicting emotions. I was unsure of my next move. Despite my inner turmoil, I found myself drawn to Carly daily, often catching her smiling at me. I casually mentioned changing my lunch schedule, anticipating not seeing her again, and she changed hers to seek my company. We began sharing lunch almost daily, further complicating my feelings. We grew close, and I found myself developing strong feelings for her. One day I worked up the courage to express my admiration, telling her that she was one of the most beautiful and kind women I'd ever met. But I added that if she weren't married, I would ask her out. She didn't seem to respond, but I am married, Kevin, even if my marriage isn't perfect. I would never cheat on my husband. It wouldn't be right for me. Intrigued, I asked her about her marital problems. Tears welled up in her eyes as she confessed her suspicions of her husband's infidelity. I offered comfort, holding her trembling hand as she silently cursed any man foolish enough to jeopardize a relationship with her. I couldn't help but wonder if he was back with Rachel. I felt a sense of urgency. I urged her to meet me after work, insisting that we discuss something important in private. She hesitated, wary of the implications, but I assured her it was crucial. Eventually, she agreed to meet, but only in a public place. Over dinner, she shared her conversation with Marge, learned about my painful divorce, and sympathized. She expressed her fear of facing a similar betrayal from her husband. It struck me how vulnerable she was, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I was falling in love with another man's wife. A twist I hadn't seen coming. Carly, there are some things I need to share with you. I understand that you're married, but I've developed feelings for you. Please, Kevin, let's not go any further. I'm a married woman, Carly. It's important that I get this off my chest. Please hear me out. Like I said, I've fallen in love with you. The problem is that I've become hardened after discovering my wife's affair. You've probably heard rumors about how I've changed. I wish I could shake off this anger and resentment, but it's always with me. My wife and her lover planted that chip on my shoulder. At first, I wanted revenge. I wanted to find his wife and confront them both, but now I'm faced with a dilemma. The woman I wanted to get even with is the one I've grown to love. Carly interrupted Kevin. You don't have to tell me all this. It's deeply personal, and I can feel the pain in your words. Please, Carly, let me finish, because as I was saying, I wanted to get back at my wife's lover by targeting his wife. Now I'm in love with the very person I'm trying to hurt. Carly covered her face in shock as she realized the man was her husband, and the woman I loved was her, tears streaming down her cheeks. Dear God, this is hard to believe. How can you be so sure? Were you going to rape me in revenge for my husband? She sobbed harder, and I reached out to comfort her, but she pulled away. Please, not now. She pleaded that I needed time to process Carly. A year ago, I found the man in my bedroom. I attacked him and threw him out naked. I only knew his name. I took the note Rachel had left for me out of my pocket and handed it to Carly. I had kept it for some reason. She cried as she read it. For the past 6 months, I've watched you come to the restaurant for lunch every day. I waited to see you. You were the only bright spot in my life, and I didn't even know you. Slowly, I began to fall in love with you. I didn't know you were married at the time. I refrained from approaching you because of my temper and my plans for revenge. Then one day I asked Marge about you. When I learned that you were married, I felt terrible. I wanted to know you better, but I didn't want to break up your marriage. Another day I saw your husband at lunch, and that's when I recognized him. I did everything I could to resist the urge to confront him again. If you were any other woman, I would have taken my revenge in front of him by now. Carly sat there, tears rolling down her face as she clasped her hands together. I found myself falling in love with you, Carrie, and I couldn't bring myself to hurt the woman I love, but now I'm in deep turmoil. I want to hurt your husband without causing you any pain. I also want to be physically involved with you. It has been a long time since I have experienced this connection. This past year has been consumed with thoughts of revenge. I suspect your husband has reconnected with Rachel, his childhood sweetheart, now divorced. How do you feel about me, Carrie? I need to understand so I can figure out what to do. I promise, no matter how you feel about me, I won't hurt you, not now. I know I come across as an idiot, a vengeful person, but there's another side to me that hasn't seen the light of day for a year. I want to show you that side. Please give me a chance to show you that deep down I can be kinder, more compassionate. I believe you're the woman who can bring out that kinder side of me. Revenge is blocking his path. Help me, Carly. Help me get my revenge on your husband. And then, if you want, we can build a real loving life together. My God, Kevin, so much to do all at once. My mind is flooded with questions, and right now I don't have any answers. I'm not even sure about my feelings for you, for my husband, or even for myself. I need time to think about everything you've told me before I can give you any kind of answers. Please understand that I'm not disrespecting you or avoiding the subject. I want to help you because you seem to be in so much pain, but I just don't know what to do. After a somewhat unsettling dinner, I walked Carrie to her car. I apologized if I had upset her, but I felt she deserved to know the truth. I assured her that I would do everything I could to work through our problems together. Maybe it wasn't the right time to reveal my growing feelings for her, but I couldn't keep them bottled up any longer. I just needed her to understand. She allowed me to give her a quick hug before she left. So far, I hadn't solved anything. If anything, I might have made things worse. Maybe revealing her husband's past wasn't the right approach. I had no idea what she was thinking, but I hoped everything would work out for her the next day. I looked forward to seeing her at lunch. I had to know her feelings and thoughts. I went to our usual restaurant and waited for her, but she never arrived. My God, what had I done? Had she confronted her husband? Did he try to hurt her? If so, I vowed I'd take action, or maybe she'd gone the other way and told him about me and my intentions. Her absence worried me. I debated whether to call her or wait another day. It was hard to concentrate on my work. I did my best to distract myself from thinking about Carly. When I got home, my phone rang and it was Carrie. She sounded upset. Kevin, I need to see you. I know I said I shouldn't come over, but things have changed. I want to. No, I need to see you tonight. Can I come over, please? Oh, Carly, I have been so worried about you. Today was hard after not seeing you at lunch. Did that idiot hurt you? If he did, I swear I'll take care of him. Yes, come right away. I'll wait for you. As I hung up, the doorbell rang. Who could it be that opened the door? I found Carly standing there with a smile on her face. I followed you home, but I had to be sure you were sincere about helping me. Your answer on the phone assured me that you were sorry about the test, but I had to know that relief washed over me when I saw her. I hugged her tightly, feeling comforted by her presence. "Why didn't you go to work today?" I asked. She explained. "I was trying to sort things out in my head last night." Jim. My husband came home late as usual, claiming to have worked late. I tried to be affectionate, but he brushed me off, saying he was tired. I thought to myself, if a man would reject someone like Carly, he must have just satisfied his desires or lost his mind. Carly continued this morning. I waited for Jim to leave and then searched the computer files for clues. I work with computers, so I was able to track down some files with the information you provided. Here's what I found. She handed me a stack of papers and offered to explain them to me instead of making me read them. Then she said, "First of all, I don't love Jim anymore. After discovering what I did, I think I despise him. I won't tolerate being used, and that's a concern I have with you." I held her hands reassuringly. She added, "I'm not sure how I feel about you. Part of me cares deeply, but another part warns me to be cautious, fearing that you might just use me for your revenge. So for now, I want to keep things on hold. If you really care, you'll understand and wait until our lives are clearer before we proceed. What do you think?" I smiled. That's all I ask for, a chance to prove myself. I really care, and if I start to rush, just tell me to slow down. Can we seal our agreement with a kiss before we dive into your detective work? She grinned. No, let's get started. My husband applied for this job instead of being transferred, which he claimed was his first lie. This was his hometown. I thought he wanted to go back. I agreed because I loved him. He went to his high school reunion 16 months ago. I couldn't go because of a family commitment. He said class reunions are usually boring. Come to think of it, my wife also had a reunion. I was on a business trip. She wanted to see her old friends. I never thought about it until now. You're a pretty good pie. Here are some emails between them. Before and after the reunion, they were expecting to meet when you caught them making love 4 months later. It wasn't their first time. They had been doing it for 4 months. I got angry. She told me it just happened. I thought my revenge was over, but now things changed. Carly could see my hurt. I told Carly I wasn't mad at her, but I was angry that my ex-wife had betrayed me. I needed to be kissed to calm down. She screamed, "Stop, you idiot! I'm going to kiss you!" She came over and kissed me gently, then more tenderly as we sat back down. I thanked her. She said, "My pleasure, and I mean pleasure. Let's get back to work. I can't stay here all night." Here are copies of my husband's cell phone records. He called a number almost daily that belonged to Rachel Miller, my wife's maiden name. I didn't know she had a cell phone. When was it purchased? According to my husband's phone records, it was about a month before he was attacked by a couple of thugs named Kevin. That means he had the phone before you caught them. That might explain why they got away with it for so long, and why she didn't fight for more money during the divorce. Some of that might have come out and wouldn't have helped her case. What about you, Carly? You're still married to that jerk. What are we supposed to do? She caught my slip instead of you. I want to take everything we have from him. I want to make him regret it. I want to embarrass him in public without losing my dignity. Or you, Carly, can you stay in the house without giving anything away? No problem. I won't sleep with him. I can cook dinner. If he sees his girlfriend, I'll be fine. Let's go shopping. Use joint credit cards. Spend freely, go into debt. Get cash advances, invest the money. Kevin, you're a stockbroker. Why not handle the investments? I want you to trust me. I'm not taking any of it. If we have sex, that's my revenge. We started with credit cards. She kissed me before leaving, promising lunch the next day. Instead, we hit banks taking cash advances with joint cards wisely. She didn't max any cards. We discovered he used one for a motel twice a week for 3 days. We repeated the process with 7 cards. I invested the money in hard-to-access accounts in my name and made her a co-signer for safety. I dug into my ex's life but found little. I shared what I had with Carrie and she took over. Rachel was now working as a secretary at her husband's company. Carly uncovered their off-duty hangouts. They were careless. No one noticed. Carly's friends documented everything. Carly was beloved at work. A computer was without the geeky vibe. She helped other secretaries and earned their respect and protection. I considered revenge. I couldn't use Carly, the one good thing in my life, like my cheating ex, but I wanted revenge. I relied on Carly for ideas. Carrie refused to make love, not wanting to sink to my ex's level. She cared about me, but remained married. I needed a plan. I'd been living on the edge, hanging out with pimps and promiscuous women. They trusted me with their money. Some of the hookers became friends despite our different lifestyles. I called a pimp friend for a favor, promising a reward. He agreed. Impressed with my plan, Carly and I planned our sting. She was hesitant about the public exposure, but I assured her I'd protect her, and her smile indicated deeper feelings. I asked her to take a few days off, be it vacation, sick leave, or otherwise. We had limited time to set up the sting, so it had to go smoothly. What's the plan? Kevin? How are you going to get revenge without involving me? What do I have to do first? Stop with the questions. I said, smiling. Next Wednesday? You've got room 109 booked until 10. In the evening, I'll reserve the same room for Wednesday morning while I set up a remote control video recorder. You're going to see my lawyer, Sally Hawk. You'll need a divorce decree drawn up and signed by Jim that night. What if he refuses to sign? Kevin? Don't worry, Carly, he'll probably sign. I'll explain the whole plan later. Or would you prefer a surprise? Kevin? You're making me nervous. Your excitement is infectious. I just want you to be close to me. This revenge is for both of us, then I hope you'll feel the same way about me as I do about you. Are we going too far, Kevin? I just want to even the score. We'll create a stir, but their lives will go on unless they refuse to sign your papers. Now here's the plan. They usually meet between 5 and 6. We'll target Jim first. My friend Big Louie and his girl Sally, and Sue will pay him a visit. Their promiscuous women with syphilis have paid to have unprotected sex with him. Big Louie will make sure Jim cooperates. How do you know these people? Kevin? They're my clients. They bring in a lot of money, and I help them invest it. Rachel can choose to sleep with Jim or Big Louie while they're busy. We'll be in the van with the remote. When the time is right, you'll walk in, catch them, and demand a divorce. Then you'll give Jim a choice: sign the papers or be exposed. Big Louie will see to your safety. Well, Carly, what do you think? Is it a go? She smiled. You're doing this more for me, aren't you? I'm starting to like this side of you. It's a go. The next days. Sally Hawk, our lawyer, wanted to serve Jim herself. Big Louie was prepared, and I rented the motel room for Wednesday afternoon. At lunch, we saw my ex-sister-in-law with another man. Carly played along and kissed me provocatively to get attention. I gestured to the waiter. "Isn't she gorgeous?" He agreed. "Yes, sir." Turning to her, I said, "You don't belong to me, sweetheart. Only you, baby." "I belong only to you." She smiled, though I hoped it was true. I knew she was pretending for my ex-sister-in-law who never showed up. I wondered why. After lunch, Carly and I went to the electronics store to get the equipment we needed. She confirmed that the restaurant kiss was real, although partly despite my ex-sister-in-law. Wednesday morning arrived and tension mounted. Every detail had to be perfect for the sting. Carly sorted out the divorce papers with Sally while I set up the video equipment. At the motel, we met Big Louie, who impressed Carly with his assurance of her safety. Earlier, Carly had sent an email to Jim and Rachel pretending to be each other to sow doubt between them. "Honey, I have a special treat for you tonight. Please, when you arrive, don't ask any questions. I know you will be surprised. Just go along to make it extra special. Let's not communicate for the rest of the day. I want this to be a night you will always remember." At 4:45 p.m., Carly and I parked in our van and waited. At exactly 5 o'clock, Jim walked into the room. We were tense. This was a big surgery for us. At 5:15, we saw Big Louie, Sally, and Sue approach the room as they knocked. We activated our cameras. We waited to start recording until the action began. We had 2 cameras, one above the lights and one inside the smoke detector. The picture quality from the pinhole camera was remarkable. I made a mental note to get the cameras back the next day. Carly and I were nervous when Big Louie knocked. When Jim opened the door, he looked surprised. Louie explained their purpose and Jim hesitated, but finally complied. Sally and Sue, both attractive despite being hookers, worked their magic on Jim, who seemed nervous but went along. Carly watched through our remote and felt a mix of emotions. She felt both sadness and satisfaction. She was sad because her husband of 5 years had chosen to betray her. But she was also happy that her revenge had begun. There was a knock at the door, and Big Louie opened it to find Rachel standing there. He greeted her and wondered what was going on. Rachel saw her boyfriend Jim lying on the bed. Confusion clouded her thoughts as she entered the room, remembering Jim's email hinting at something special. That night, upon entering, tall Louie ordered Rachel to undress. Fear gripped her as she looked at the imposing figure of the tall man commanding her. He assured her he wouldn't lay a hand on her. His presence was only for the protection of the women. Sue urged Rachel to undress quickly, reminding her that time was of the essence. Feeling insecure, Rachel began to undress, unaware that cameras were capturing every moment, both audio and visual. Meanwhile, Jim and Rachel indulged their desires. Afterwards, as Rachel came down from her euphoria, Sally began to dress. A knock on the door interrupted Sally Hawk. Our attorney had arrived after inquiring about the situation. She glanced at the monitor and witnessed Jim and Rachel having their affair, exchanging their veins. The promiscuous women, Sally and Sue, returned to their vehicle. They had effectively completed their task. Big Louie remained vigilant outside, protecting Carly and Sally Hawk in case they needed help. Carly and Sally approached the door, with Carly entering first. Furious, Carly unleashed a barrage of profanities at Jim and Rachel, demanding an immediate divorce. Caught in the act, Jim and Rachel knew there was no way to justify their actions. Carly expressed her disappointment at Jim's betrayal and her determination to end the marriage. Then Sally Hawk walked in. "Jim, meet my attorney, Sally Hawk. She's going to explain the terms of the divorce. I want this process started tonight, so I can get you out of my life as soon as possible and you can be with your girlfriend." Both Jim and Rachel got out of bed and began to dress. Jim's excitement disappeared at the sound of Carly's voice. He got no satisfaction, and they didn't shower, so the risk of venereal disease remained. "I'm Sally Hawk, representing Carly. The terms are simple. A Carly leaves tonight and takes what she wants within 24 hours. You won't be there. The apartment is yours. 2. You pay all the bills through today, including the joint credit cards. Carly hands over the joint cards, never uses them again, and handles her own cards. 3. You each handle your own car insurance payments and maintenance. 4. Carly gets $8,000 from your joint savings. Tomorrow, you both keep your $41 CA, yours with over $8,000, hers with $15,000. If you sign now, it's final." Carly has just signed when her husband Sally hands him the document while Rachel looks on. Jim asked, "What if I don't sign tonight?" Sally replied, "It's void in 5 minutes. Then we'll go to court for the same terms, plus half your 401k. It's a good deal. I suggest you take it." Carly went to the closet, retrieved the VCR tape, and declared that this recording of tonight's events would be evidence of our divorce. Jim replied, "I'm not that naive. You can't use it. You took it without permission." Sally chuckled. "You really are clueless. We won't use it in court, but we'll send copies to your company and its headquarters. They won't marry employees. Have affairs." Jim moved on, but Big Louie showed up again. "You didn't mean to hurt me. My friends were you." Jim stepped back. "Jim, you have 3 minutes to decide." Sally explained. Rachel whispered to Jim, "Sally Hawk represented my husband and I got nothing. She's top-notch. Take the deal or you're in trouble, and we'll lose our jobs if the tape leaks." 1 minute left, Sally warned. Jim yelled, "Wait, I'll sign, but I want the tape." Carly handed Big Louie the tape along with a $500 bonus. Sally reiterated, "This deal is final. If you have any problems, contact me. Don't hassle Carly or you'll be arrested." Jim signed, got a copy, and Carly and Sally left. Big Louie gave Jim the tape and then left with the others. Carly and Sally returned to the car, jubilant. Carly quickly kissed me, but the mood changed when Sally spoke. "Kevin, until the divorce is final. You can't see, Carrie. We can't risk anyone seeing you together as long as you're unattached. Everything should go as planned. We may have problems with recent credit card transactions, but our records support us unless Carly is accused of fraud. That's why I'm allowing Jim to keep his 401k. There's enough money for the banks to go after him if he tries to declare bankruptcy. There's no money in Carly's name except for the $8,000 she's withdrawing tomorrow. I suggest she keep it in the same bank, but only in her name to avoid scrutiny." Sally added, "After the divorce, there should be no more problems, and the two of you can get back together if you want." "Kevin, you mentioned your employer's offer to set up a brokerage in another state for a few months. I recommend that you take it soon. Carly will be fine, and I'll keep an eye on her. Right now, you're Carly's biggest worry. I can't make you, but I strongly recommend it." Carly cried, and I comforted her, knowing that Sally was right. I was the present problem, the weak link. I kissed Carly goodbye and promised to wait for her. After the divorce, Sally and Carly left, with Sally driving Carly home to gather her belongings in the rented U-Haul. Sally assured me that I could call her for updates, or if I needed to talk about Carly alone. I checked the monitor and saw that Jim and Rachel had left. I packed up my equipment and grabbed an extra copy of the tape just in case. Funny how no one ever questions a backup. With everything gathered, I drove home feeling happy for Carly, but sad for myself. The next day, I talked to my boss about the temp job in Chicago that was supposed to start on Friday. I hoped things would work out for Carrie. She really deserved the best. It seemed she had gotten her revenge, leaving me feeling isolated. Helping Carly had been fun, and my affection for her remained strong. When I arrived in Chicago, I threw myself into work as we built a new brokerage firm from the ground up. During my free time, thoughts of Carrie consumed me for the first few weeks. One day I reached out to Sally Hawk, who assured me that everything was going well. Jim's attempts to contest the divorce decree were met with resistance from Sally, prompting his lawyer to advise against further confrontation. Jim's unfounded accusations against Carly lacked evidence, prompting Sally to warn him of possible legal repercussions. Sally also revealed that Jim and Rachel had contracted chlamydia, which requires treatment and prohibits carnal activity until recovery. This news brought a smile to my face. Sally also informed me that Carly had moved into a nice apartment near her work and had taken half of her belongings to furnish her new home. She was advised not to mention me in order to avoid making any connections. Although she wasn't dating anyone yet, it had only been a few weeks. In private conversations, Carrie expressed her longing for me and acknowledged my kindness. Time didn't fly by as fast as I would have liked during my time in Chicago. I didn't feel much better than before the revenge, but at least I could see Carly every day. I took a break and visited my parents in Michigan for Thanksgiving, needing to get away from AP for a while. It was good to be with my family. I took my sister Christmas shopping and bought gifts for everyone, including engagement and wedding rings for Carly in hopes of a future together, and returned to Chicago after Thanksgiving. I expected to be there for about 3 more weeks. The cold, windy loneliness of the city weighed heavily on me, despite its beautiful lights. With the new agents, we successfully launched the business, attracting many clients eager to invest back in Ohio before the end of the year. My boss praised our accomplishments, but I hoped my personal life would improve as well. 2 days before Christmas, I returned to my apartment and called Sally Hawk. She was happy to hear from me and asked how business was going. I asked about Carly and the progress of the divorce. Sally hesitated before revealing that it had been finalized 2 days earlier, although she didn't have Carly's number. She promised to inform her of my return. I felt insecure. I pondered Carly's thoughts during my absence and decided to visit our favorite restaurant where we used to have lunch together. I hoped to see her. Mara, a friend, spotted me and joined me, hoping for some insight. We exchanged pleasantries. Mara shared news of her family and upcoming holidays, offering a glimpse into her life. Since I'd been away, I inquired if Carrie still worked for the company. Mara confirmed that she did, but mentioned her recent divorce, which had happened quickly. She observed that Carly seemed less cheerful now, refusing dates and focusing on work. Mara felt sorry for her, but she believed that Carly needed to get through it on her own. Still, everyone cared about her and hoped she'd find the right partner, because she deserved better than a cheating husband. I asked Mara if Carly was at work. She confirmed that she was that day, but she had gotten a call an hour earlier and had left for the afternoon instead of having lunch. Carly wouldn't be back until the week after Christmas. I wished Mara a Merry Christmas and asked her to give my regards to her family before she went home. When I got home, I found nothing on the answering machine and felt a bit depressed. The phone rang and I hoped it was Carly, but it turned out to be another telemarketer asking for money. Frustrated, I hung up. I realized that Carly might not necessarily be calling me about her investments because other agents could have updated my client files. In my absence, I decided to call the office to check on Carly's accounts, but I got a voicemail. Glancing at the clock, I noticed that it was already 5:12 p.m. I realized that the offices would be closed until Monday for the holidays. I was in the dark on a holiday weekend with all the offices closed. Frustrated, I wondered if I still had a chance with Carly or if I'd lost her forever. The uncertainty was unbearable. I needed answers. The phone rang and I rushed to answer it. It was Sally, my lawyer, telling me that she had notified Carly of my return and that the divorce was final. Jim's attempts to contest it had failed, forcing him to use more than half of his 401k to cover credit card charges. I was grateful for Sally's update. I thanked her and wished her a Merry Christmas. A knock on the door revealed Mary, my neighbor who had kindly picked up my mail and cleaned my apartment while I was away. I invited her in briefly. She was a kindly older woman who cleaned apartments for extra income, often doing mine twice a week. Mary handed me my mail and offered me a tray of homemade Christmas cookies. I asked her to wait a moment because I also had a gift for her. I handed her an envelope with $300 bills for Christmas. Gratefully, she thanked me and left. Mary's kindness was a bright spot in the world, and I cherished her presence. Feeling hungry, I called the local pizza place for delivery. I decided to stay in for the night. I ordered a pizza and asked them to stop by the grocery store to pick up a 12-pack of Miller Lite beer. Living in a smaller town had its advantages, including hometown conveniences like this. I decided to turn on the TV for the latest news while I waited for my pizza delivery. Half an hour later, the doorbell rang, and I assumed it was the pizza guy. I rose to get my order. Upon opening the door, to my surprise, Carly was standing there with a big grin on her face. Tears welled up in my eyes as I exclaimed, "I thought you were the pizza guy." She chuckled. "Sorry to disappoint. No pizza, just me." I led her into the living room and hugged her. She felt comforted, as she always did. "I missed you, Carly. I missed you terribly. It's wonderful to see you again." Before she could answer, the doorbell rang again. This time it was the pizza guy with my order. After paying him quickly, I returned to Carly's hungry house. "We have pizza and beer," I offered, holding them up. Carly, still smiling, remarked, "You're quite a character." You know, I had everything I wanted to say planned out, and now I can't even think straight. I have a few things to tell you. Then we can enjoy the pizza while it's still hot. I know you hate cold pizza. Okay, big guy, I missed you too. By the way, I'm officially divorced now, and just found out today that you were back. I didn't want to leave a phone message that seemed too impersonal. I left work early after Sally informed me of your return. I wanted to bring you a kind of Christmas present. You'll see it after we eat. It's not often that you treat me to dinner, so let's dig in. As I was getting paper plates, I asked her about the nature of the gift. She flashed that heartwarming smile and remarked, "Now you'll see. Eat your pizza and pass me a beer with a chuckle." She relaxed as we ate. We talked about her work and its success. I shared details about the agency we had started, skirting the looming problems. They would be addressed soon after our hunger was satisfied. Carly turned to me and asked, "Are you ready for your kind of gift?" "Right now." I grinned and replied, "Absolutely. Where is it?" Carly presented a small bag that looked like a lunch bag. "I'll be right back," she announced. As she left the room, I discreetly retrieved the ring I had bought for her from a drawer and slipped it into my pocket from the bedroom. She called out, "Are you ready?" I replied, "I think so." Upon her return, she explained, "I bought this kind of present for you today. You could open it if you'd like," and there she was, standing in front of me in a lace red silk bra and matching lingerie, with a little red silk bow in her hair. She said, "I'm not married anymore, so there's no cheating involved." Tears streamed down my face as the woman I had longed for over a year stood before me and offered herself with determination. I looked at her and said, "On one condition," taking the ring out of my pocket, "I'll go on if you marry me." Overwhelmed with emotion, she rushed into my arms as I embraced her warm, soft body. In tears, she exclaimed, "Yes, I'll marry you." Yes, yes, God, how I've come to love you. I took her in my arms and carried her to my bedroom while I read about peaks and how to make love. It was my first real experience. Exhausted, I had to lie on top of her for a few moments. I had never felt so exhausted. We must have been asleep for quite some time, because when we awoke the house was shrouded in darkness. It had been too long since I had woken up next to a woman I desired, who needed to use the bathroom. I left her briefly when I returned. Carly had cleaned up and grabbed one of my long t-shirts from the dresser. It had never looked better on her. Carly took a shower and cleaned up while I put the leftover pizza in the oven for a bit. It always tasted better out of the oven when we ate pizza. We talked some more. I asked Carly when she wanted to get married. She answered that she wanted to do it as soon as possible. She didn't want to wait until then. It was about 10 o'clock at night. I called Sally Hawk at her home. She answered and asked, "What's wrong, Kevin?" She must have had a caller ID. I told her that Carly and I had a problem and maybe she could help me solve it. Seeing she was a lawyer. "What is it, Kevin?" "I'll help if I can. Carly and I want to get married as soon as possible, but tomorrow is Christmas Eve and we need a judge to marry us. Do you know anyone?" Sally started to laugh. "So Carly called you. I'm happy for both of you, so meet me at the courthouse tomorrow morning. We'll get your marriage license and then come to my house. You see, Mr. Hawk, my husband is a judge. I know he'll get married. See you tomorrow at 9 a.m. sharp." The next morning, Carly, dressed beautifully, and I, in a suit, met Sally at the clerk's office. We got our license and went over to Sally's house to get married. Her husband seemed like a pretty nice guy for a judge. You never know what to expect with lawyers and judges. But we knew that Sally was the best. Carrie didn't have much family left in the area, just a few distant cousins. So we decided to go to Michigan and surprise my family with my new wife. To say they were happy or overjoyed would be putting it mildly. Ecstatic would be a better word. They all loved Carly. How could they not? She was definitely part of the family. Wow, Christmas turned out pretty good after all. We had to leave after Christmas. We both had jobs and now we had to move. We decided to stay in my apartment. Hers was on a month-to-month lease anyway. Every day after work we moved some of her stuff over to my place. It was fun to do almost everything together. The girls where she worked were so happy for her. They said the old Carly was back. Mara was a little shocked when she found out that I was the new husband, remembering that I was a rebel and very vengeful. I remember Carly telling her, "Don't worry, Mara. He's a puppy and I love him very much." The big New Year's Eve party was coming up. almost all the successful businesses. People from the area were attending. I asked Carly, honey, would you like to go? The bash of the year, our first time that everyone can see us together. I want to show you off. Besides, our exes might even be there. Carly thought, then looked at me and said, Kevin, I love you with all my heart and I want everyone to know it. Yes, we are going to the New Year's party, my dear husband. I watched as she began to get ready. She took out her lacy red silk lingerie and bra that somehow belonged to me, and said she was going to wear them that night. She looked over at me and started to laugh. What am I going to do with you? Doesn't she ever stop and take a break? Look at the bulge in my pants, not with you around. I replied about the New Year's party. We went. Carly looked stunning. She had on a red blouse that matched her lacy red silk bra and lingerie, all lace and silk. It doesn't get much hotter than that, except that the blouse was really low cut to show off her ample bosom. Her skirt was a black miniskirt with a lace bottom. She would have to watch how she sat in that skirt. No matter how she sat, you would see thigh because of the side slit. She looked so good. She was dressed to the nines, but in a good way. Everyone wanted us to sit at their table. My boss and his group, Carly's friends, and even the few friends I had, Sally and Judge Hawk, invited us to their table. That's where we decided Ed should sit. I looked at Sally and told her I had never seen a lawyer before. You look so good. She looked fantastic. They introduced us to everyone else at their table. It was mostly judges and their wives, and they all seemed like pretty nice people. The music was loud, but it was New Year's Eve. Carly and I got up and did all the slow dances. Other men asked Carly to dance, but her answer was always no. This year I only want to dance with my husband. This was our year to be together. The only exception we made was that I danced one dance with Sally and Carly danced one dance with the judge. They were special friends. As we were dancing, we found ourselves next to Karen, my ex-wife's sister, and it just so happened that we almost ran into Karen and her husband on the crowded dance floor. She looked over and said, "Oh my God, that's Kevin." I looked at her and said, "Well, good evening, Karen, and Happy New Year to you." Then I said I'd like you to meet my wife, Carly. Carly. This is Karen and her husband. He reached out to shake Carly's hand and said, "Bob, my name is Bob." Carly gave her patented smile and said, "Nice to meet you, Bob and Karen." Then Carly looked at Karen and said, "Didn't we meet at Robson's restaurant on Old Route 40 about 2 months ago?" Bob replied, "No, that place is too expensive for our taste." Karen turned white and said, "Nice to see you again." We knew she had to go back and tell Jim and Rachel that we were there. We looked over at their table. Rachel knocked over her drink when she found out I was there. We saw her turn quickly to look at us. We could hear Rachel say, "Oh my God, Jim, he's with your ex-wife." Jim almost fell out of his chair trying to turn around and see. Karen looked at Rachel and said, "Rachel." He introduced her as his wife. Jim said that son of a bitch set us up. They set us up for over $10,000 plus.